Hi folks, so I'm on the moors, the West Pennine moors, and I'm hoping today to do a loadout of what I carried when I did the Pennine Way. Now I actually did the Pennine Way April of last year, and yeah, managed to do it in 14 days. Now when I was doing my original research, I discovered that most people failed, or said the reason they failed was the weight of their pack. And in some ways I can understand this, because of the fact that when you're thinking about doing the Pennine Way, you're really concerned about the weather and the conditions. And in fact the conditions are very similar to where I'm standing at the moment. So very muddy underfoot, big open expanses of the moors, which obviously means you can pick up the wind, and driving rain, and those conditions are not uncommon. The other challenge I had, and you would have, is if you're doing it in the shoulder months, and for the Pennines the shoulder months actually go all the way up to April, and yeah, probably starts again in October. And one of the nights I was wild camping, it actually got down to -5 degrees centigrade. This is the problem. You're trying to carry enough gear to stay warm and dry, and you're trying to balance that weight. When I left Edale on the 31st of March last year, I had on my back 10.5 kilos. And when I finished, so my base weight essentially was 7.1 kilos when I got to the Borders Hotel for my pint. And yeah, in very round numbers, about 1.5 kilos for water, 1.5 for food, and I think 0.4 for the gas I was carrying, of which I think I had too much. But anyhow, that gives you a rough idea. I now need to try and find somewhere where I can sit down and get the kit out. Okay, let's make a start. What I'm going to do is take the actual pack and work my way through the outside of the pack and then go inside. And then after that, I'll go for a walk and we'll reflect on what I would have changed if I was going to do it again. So first things first, the Atom pack, 40 litre Atom pack. I have to say, I was right at the edge of did I need 45 or 50, but I managed to get it all into the 40, which I'm really glad, because that kept the weight down quite a bit compared to my 50 pack. What I will do is put the weight of each item in the corner somewhere so you can keep abreast of those. One of the first things is my sit map. I think that's about 18 grams. It weighs nothing, but it's so useful in many ways, particularly in winter or near winter. You go to sit down on the ground, obviously, or even a bench. It keeps your bum warm. Then this is actually part of my winter sleep system. So in here I have silver bubble wrap. I think this with the cover weighs 148 grams. I put it down underneath my sleeping bag, underneath my sleeping mat to protect it from getting any punctures, etc. And also it adds an extra, I think it's like 1.1 extra in terms of rating for warmth, so protection from the floor. Because one of the other things I did do is decide, I believe the thickness of my tent ground sheet was sufficient that I didn't need to take another ground sheet. So yeah, that's what I did. I'd be interested on your comments on that. In here, it just happens that this cover is an old tent bag, and it's got a zipped compartment which the beds used to go in. But I've actually got sponge, spade, and some wipes. So they weigh about 2 grams, I think, and I think 1 gram is the actual packaging. And I also carry some wipes as well, hand wipes. So yeah, all good stuff. Obviously the sponge is for wiping down the tent if I have too much condensation or before I put it away. Sometimes mopping out the tent if it gets too wet for any reason. Yeah, I just use it for so many different things. And of course, it's so small and weighs practically nothing. The next thing I'll cover is water bottles. Now I know you can get collapsible water bottles, and I actually come from the running community here, and I use them when I'm doing ultras and things of that ilk. But I actually find, I don't know, for whatever reason, I find it better using hard plastic bottles for when I'm hiking. And so this is a 750ml one, and I have a 500ml one as well. And the other good thing about this pack is having those pockets at the front. Got me in reach. I can't go anywhere without me in reach. It's just so useful. Peace of mind for other people who are tracking you. Then on the other side, on the other pocket, I actually have a water carrier. So this is when I keep the water separate from that which I'm going to drink and that which I've actually taken out of a stream. Even though I will filter it, I will boil it as well. So this is almost like my cooking water. I sometimes wonder if I should or shouldn't have this, but it works for me, and it's a system I've developed over time. It's 750ml and it works. Then always to hand, I've got my so I've got a small battery, almost credit card size. This is for obviously my camera gear. If it packs up on me or run out of juice when I'm on the trail, it saves getting into my pack for a bigger battery. And then I've got various wires. Obviously if I go into a pub or a cafe or something, I want to load up on juice there and then I'll use this. And I just love the way it kind of collapses down as a plug. Works really good. So yeah, that's my sort of bag of tricks. I think, yeah, keeping with that theme, going into the bag here, I'm carrying my waterproofs, my leggings. With these leggings, these are kind of mountain leggings, and I have a zip that goes all the way up to the top, which is better than just the ones that go up to the knee. There's nothing worse than when you're sort of fighting the winds and you're trying to put these on. Get one with the zip right up to the top. A little bit extra in weight, but not enough to matter. Now, there's always a debate about should you have a waterproof cover or not. I tend to go for one. I prefer my pack to almost, particularly if you can imagine you're traveling for that long. For me, it was 14 days. And I just don't want to take the chance of anything getting wet. So it's kind of like double insurance. I appreciate that because these are supposed to be waterproof, but they do warn about that water can get through at the seams. So that's why I take one of these. Going into my pockets, so I'll have things, yeah, I haven't filled this pocket up completely, but yeah, this is where all my protein bars and things of that nature will be. When I set out on this trail, I had 450 grams of protein bars, chocolate bars, and I'll just kind of keep that topped up all the way, except for obviously the last day. Then on this side, have a first aid kit, small one, which I've kind of put together myself, blister pack in there, and a few other bits and pieces. And then head torch, which is a 80-gram head torch, standard head torch. Yeah, that is what it is. Right, going into the pack now. So one of the challenges I had was the fact of, like I said, it was right on the edge of, is it 3-season or 4-season? If I was going somewhere in April in other parts of England, I would have said that's 3-season. But on the Pennines, and particularly when you get on the moors, April, beginning of April particularly, you're still on the edge of 4-season. And yeah, all the research I did, I decided in the end I would take a 4-season tent. So this being a 4-season tent, being solid, is quite heavy. I think the tent on its own, with pegs, I think is like 1.6 kilos. And then I think the poles were about a third of a kilo as well. But that tent is solid. It had to put up with some really tough weather. Like I say, one day it was -5 degrees centigrade, and another time I was up against winds of 40 miles per hour, and it had no problems whatsoever. And it was just so good knowing I had that confidence in where I was going to shelter, whichever night it was going to be. Now, I have absolutely packed everything. So just here, I usually carry 3 to 4 lots of dried food, whichever hike I'm going to do. Inside, I have the plastic bag for an outer. I then tend not to use dry bags. I might use the odd bag more for separation than anything else. So one of the first things I'm picking out is my Sea to Summit sleeping mat. And obviously the reason it's in a bag is just that's the pump sack. Then I have all my bits and pieces in here. So I will give a kind of final weight, and I don't necessarily want to take everything out, but I'll do a picture of what everything is. So this in here is talcum powder. So every night, inevitably when you're doing the Pennine Way, your feet are going to get damp, and I would always make sure they're dry and then talcum powder. And like I say, I didn't have any blisters at all. The other thing is, kind of more recently, in the last season or so, rather than actually using paste, I use tablets now. And I found that is really good because you can just count out how many you're going to take and how many times you're going to clean your teeth. And again, the weight is very insignificant. That's my cooking stove. Most people who kind of watch these things and possibly on the Pennine Way will know the BRS 3000, I think, weighs 26 grams. My fire starter, I prefer a fire starter rather than a lighter. I think it's better for the environment for one thing, and it's just fail-safe. The number of times I've seen people caught out by either running out of gas, the lighter not working, or whatever it may be. So yeah, that's kind of all of those things. Deodorant in there, shampoo. I use shampoo, although I take shampoo, if I'm obviously at a campsite, I'll use that. But also if I'm cleaning my clothes, I'll just use the shampoo. Not that fussed, certainly for 2 weeks. Then I have my cooking system. I've already said the actual burner, but then, yeah, now, one thing is, because I only had to hand a small gas cylinder, I did actually take a larger one, and I wished I'd not taken a large one. I wish I'd taken a smaller one. The thing to remember is I didn't necessarily cook every night or every morning. I did stop at a couple of YHAs. I didn't stop at any B&Bs. A couple of YHAs, I think, was the main thing. And then obviously some campsites. So then I went to the pub or whatever it may have been. Right. Then into the next thing is food, but this is kind of more the smaller items. But one of the things I do is, this is oats, so I take the kind of oat pots that you can get and then put it into a small plastic bag. I then reuse the bags every time I come to do this. So I actually took, I think it was 5 breakfasts, and with the ones I had breakfast either like a full English if I got to a cafe somewhere, or when I was at the YHA. The other thing is I use, as well as the main meal, and even if I didn't have a main meal, I had 5 cup of soups with me as well. That's a good way just to get the salt back into your body if you've sweated a lot during the day. And then I have tea bags and yeah, coffee here, 3 in 1. So it's got the milk in it as well. It is obviously all in the bag, but that's just to keep separation. Then in terms of keeping warm, I've got various clothes in here. This is just like a very light, sort of slightly puffer jacket thing, but it's like a half zip one. Yeah, it's so light that I've never been able to find another one. Now, when it came to clothes, so like I said before, wearing what I'm wearing, I also had these blue Montane trousers as well, lot lighter, and some of the days, I mean, yeah, I definitely had 4 seasons in one trip. But some of the days it was really hot. It was that hot, not only did I have the side vents open, but I actually had these here open as well. Yeah, I was just sweating so much. And so there's the pillow. I don't normally have the bag, I have to say. It's just when I put it away, I have it in the bag. But I would have carried that. I mean, it weighs 50 odd grams, I think. Not a lot. So when it comes to clothing, I take, overall, I basically have, certainly in the winter, have 3 sets of clothing. So the one set I'm wearing, a second set which particularly again on the Pennines might become wet, and then a third set that I've hopefully managed to get dry or is drying. And so I will keep rotating in that particular way. So in addition to the t-shirt I'm wearing now, I would then have another 2 t-shirts. These were all long sleeve t-shirts and zipped kind of to there. Yes. Now I did, so I looked at the weather, and the weather said it was going to be nice and 2 degrees warm, but I knew I was going on the Pennine, so I was a bit suspicious if it was going to be that way. But I was like, shall I take these or not? So I did take them, a pair of shorts, fairly thick shorts, so I have got some that are a lot lighter than these. I think these weigh 240 grams. I've got some that get down to about 200 or so. Great set of pockets on them. And I think I ended up wearing them once or twice maybe. And then that was a question of, I had to wear, I think I wore my waterproofs to begin with in the morning because it was so cold, but it then did really heat up on one particular day. It was, in the end, I think these were like a luxury item. I'm not sure I would have taken them again. So yeah, another top. Now getting into underwear. Yeah, there's all my underwear. So the other thing that obviously adds to the weight is that you're carrying winter socks, or I was carrying winter socks and wearing winter socks as well. Yeah, I did quite well on those. So the other thing I do is, so at night I wear like a school cap and I have a pair of gloves, thin gloves. Both together they weigh 55 grams. And for me, it's just the difference in terms of that extra bit that keeps me warm. I hate having cold hands. So wearing a pair of gloves at night kind of works for me. Yes, I have a towel, quite a big towel. So if I know I'm going to be stopping at a YHA or whatever, although you can hire them at YHAs, and I have done that before now, nothing better than a clean towel. But if I'm at a campsite, I'm going to be obviously using this. If I'm just wild camping, I just take a small towel, one about half the size of this. But on this occasion, that's what I use. Yes, one of the pains of my life is I have to take, I mean, this is real chunky, heavy, I think it's a third of a kilo battery pack because of all the electronic things I'm using in terms of my camera and things of that nature. My gimbal as well needs charging. So, yeah. And then last of all, I have a 3-season sleeping bag, and obviously the bag that it's actually in. And yeah, I think I've managed to cover everything. So I am going to put things away now, and then we'll kind of start walking back, and I'll talk about the things that I think I might have not taken if I was doing it again, and actually some of the decisions I made that I'm glad I made kind of at the last minute they were. Right, I'll see you in a moment. As I mentioned, I thought it would be worthwhile covering off the items that I might change based on my kind of lessons learnt. But first of all, I want to just talk about a couple of things that I changed at the last minute that I'm glad I did. And they were kind of caused by the fact that I having that debate about, do I take a 50-litre pack or a 40-litre pack? And by going with the 40, it forced some decisions which helped to keep my weight down. As I said, when I did all the research, when people failed, it was mainly, the reason they said was the weight they were carrying. So I was very determined that I wanted to keep the weight within certain bounds. And I would drive that with having a 40-litre pack. And a couple of things, I was getting desperate to get everything in, and I decided I wouldn't take. One of them, I think I mentioned, was a ground sheet, like an extra ground sheet. So yeah, I think my 4-season tent, I'm fairly confident that the ground sheet, and it proved the way, it's thick enough, it can deal with everything. And I always, in the winter, take that bubble wrap as an extra layer, and I was absolutely fine. So I was glad I made that decision. And then the other one was, like, I sort of take camp slippers or like booties and things, and I sort of wear them mainly if I'm stopping at a YHA and sometimes in the tent. Whoops. And yeah, I just forced the decision. I didn't take those. And then when I was at a YHA, I was just walking around in my socks. No one paid any heed. I don't know what I was worried about. Yeah, so that's that. Oh, I just had a thought, I'd forgotten something. I need to go back. Yep, the thing I'd forgotten was this, which is my chair. That would have been quite a find for somebody. Chair left in the woods. Yeah, so thinking about a couple of items I've reflected on. One is, I'm using these at the moment. These are hand warmers. So I normally just wear mitts, and that's to have dexterity in my hands for when I'm recording. And yeah, but my hands then get so cold. So I wish I'd have taken these with me as well. I wouldn't necessarily have them in my rucksack, so they would have been just in my puffy jacket, and they only weigh an extra 147 grams, so that would have been totally fine. And then, yeah, the other one was, it turned out to be like a luxury item, which was my shorts. They weighed, I think it was 240 grams. I didn't need them. yeah, there was one day where I wore them, and that was the day I fell in the bog. If you've ever done the Pennine Way, it's almost guaranteed you're going to end up in the bog at some point. And I was lucky in one sense that I was wearing them, because then it was just my legs that got dirty. Whereas if it had been trousers, it would have been like, can I get them clean? Can I get them dry? So that wasn't a problem. But I think I would only wear shorts or take shorts with me on the Pennine Way if I was traveling in maybe June, July, August. Otherwise, yeah, I shouldn't have taken them. But that's it. I think everything else I was totally happy with, even on reflection. So interested in your comments or observations. I'm always happy to learn new things, think about different options. So please do drop me a line. And of course, if you've got any questions about this or the Pennine Way in general, then I'm happy to help where I can. Right, hope that's all been useful. Please do subscribe, share with like-minded people, and of course, don't forget, thumbs up for the ducks. See you again.